For 18 seconds, a U.S. Navy destroyer was under live fire from a foreign military. No warning, no radio call, no misunderstanding, and in those 18 seconds, one country crossed a line it could never uncross. This is the moment Venezuela learned what modern naval war really looks like. At exactly 5:17 a.m. on November 12, 2025, international waters in the Caribbean Sea erupted in gunfire. The Venezuelan patrol boat Guaicaipuro made a catastrophic decision. Without warning, its Otto Melara 76mm cannon roared to life, tearing through the pre-dawn darkness toward the USS Gravely, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer conducting routine counter-narcotics operations. The shells screamed across 1,200 meters of open water, 18 seconds. That's how long it took for the Venezuelans to realize they had just signed their own death warrant. This wasn't a random act of aggression. This was the endgame of a plan that had been building for weeks. A calculated gamble by Venezuela's naval command that they could exploit the Caribbean's maze of rocky islands and unpredictable currents to ambush American patrols without consequence. Why it matters. This wasn't about a patrol boat. It was about who controls the artery feeding billions of dollars into the U.S. drug trade. They fatally underestimated two things: the all-seeing eye of the P-8A Poseidon surveillance aircraft circling 30,000 feet overhead, and the cold, automated precision of the Aegis combat system. This patch of Caribbean water isn't just beautiful blue waves and white sand beaches. It's the jugular vein of the global narcotics trade. 90% of cocaine entering the United States passes through these shipping lanes. That's over 1,000 tons annually, enough raw product to paralyze every major city on the eastern seaboard. Venezuela knows this. Their strategy relies on using the islands and violent sea currents as natural shields. A clever defensive posture, but not sophisticated enough. Right in this strategic choke point, Venezuela rolled the dice. On paper, this looked like an impossible mission for the Americans. The Venezuelans had home field advantage, jagged islands providing cover, the ability to deploy swarm drone tactics within minutes, and powerful Caribbean currents that distorted radar signatures. But the opening move in this deadly chess match wasn't made by a warship. It was made by a converted Boeing 737 airliner circling patiently over the horizon. You don't send a sledgehammer first. You send the neurosurgeon. The P-8A Poseidon exists for one core principle: mastering the physics of looking down. Its primary weapon isn't a missile, but the AN/APY-10 multi-mission radar housed in its chin-mounted dome. Think of it less like a simple radar sweep and more like a high-powered MRI scanner for the ocean surface. It operates in multiple modes, but its true strength is synthetic aperture radar capability. It doesn't just see a blip on a screen, it takes thousands of radar snapshots per second as it flies, using onboard supercomputers to stitch them together into photograph-quality images. This is how an operator sitting in air-conditioned comfort can differentiate the radar signature of a 2,500-ton Venezuelan patrol boat from a 3,000-ton civilian freighter from 150 miles away. The process is a masterpiece of integrated warfare. As the P-8's radar paints the tactical picture, human sensor operators tag potential threats. That data, position, course, speed, and high-fidelity radar imagery is compressed and transmitted over Link 16. Link 16 is the military's private, encrypted, jam-proof internet in the sky. The signal travels from the P-8 to a satellite, then down to the Combat Information Center aboard USS Gravely. There, it doesn't appear as a voice report that someone has to transcribe. It populates automatically as a hostile contact on the Aegis combat system's main display, complete with all the tactical data the P-8 just gathered. The Venezuelan ship has no idea it's been identified, classified, and targeted before its crew has even finished morning coffee. But the P-8 has a critical vulnerability. It's still a 737, big, loud, with the stealth profile of a flying school bus. This is why it operates from standoff distance, just outside the engagement envelope of Venezuela's coastal air defenses. A calculated risk, its overwhelming surveillance strength balanced by physical vulnerability, and so it circles, the unseen eye in the sky, watching as the Venezuelans sailed confidently into a trap set for them hours ago. And what happens at 6:45 a.m. is why Venezuela never fired another shot. 5:17 a.m. exactly. The Venezuelan captain's order cut through the pre-dawn silence. Fuego, fire. This was their moment, the culmination of their high-risk gamble. Their entire strategy hinged on bringing the fight into a phone booth, getting close enough that American technology couldn't save them. Their weapon of choice, the Otto Melara 76mm cannon, isn't a precision sniper rifle. It's a sawed-off shotgun on steroids. Its job is simple: act like a giant high-speed sandblaster, shredding everything on an enemy's deck with a torrent of 100 high-explosive shells per minute. Radar antennas, communications equipment, exposed personnel, all reduced to scrap metal. Their doctrine demanded they get close enough to see the rust on an enemy's hull, land a devastating first punch, then vanish back into the island maze before the giant could respond. Smart tactics for a smaller, scrappier navy, but it was all built on one critical, fatal assumption: that their approach had gone unnoticed. They believed they were the hunters setting an ambush. They had no idea they were the ones who had already walked into the trap. Inside Gravely's Combat Information Center, no one shouted, no one froze. A 22-year-old radar operator watched the screen light up red for the first time in his career. He didn't think about Venezuela. He didn't think about politics. He thought about one thing: did the system work? The American response was silent, digital, and utterly dismissive. The first layer of defense wasn't a weapon, it was electronic hide-and-seek. The destroyer's powerful ANSLQ-32 electronic warfare suite, nicknamed Sidekick, came to life. This is the ship's master of deception. First, Gravely went into MCON, emissions control, minimizing its own radar signatures until its 9,000-ton frame had the electronic profile of a small fishing trawler. Then, Sidekick began its real work: digital spoofing. It projected multiple powerful fake radar returns into the ether, ghost ships, luring Venezuelan gunners into wasting precious ammunition on empty patches of ocean. While the Venezuelans fought phantoms, the real threat to those 76mm shells was being addressed. This is the job of the RGM-162 Evolved Sea Sparrow missile, the ESSM. It's not an offensive weapon, it's a guardian angel in missile form. An incoming shell is tracked by the Aegis system, which calculates a precise intercept point in three-dimensional space. The ESSM launches, not flying directly at the shell, but toward that calculated point in the sky. In its final seconds, the missile's own seeker activates, making micro-adjustments as it pulls up to 50 Gs, a maneuver that would crush any human pilot, to guarantee the intercept. It's the ultimate defensive shortstop, and it swatted Venezuelan shells out of the sky with cold, automated efficiency. The Venezuelans thought they were in a knife fight. The Americans had just proven they weren't even in the same room. Just as Gravely's crew methodically dismantled the initial attack, the battle space warped. This was Venezuela's ace in the hole, a surprisingly sophisticated move that showed they weren't relying solely on brute force. From a hidden coastal battery, a Russian-made Borisoglepsk-2E electronic warfare system, likely operated by foreign advisors, activated. It didn't fire a missile. Instead, it unleashed a powerful localized GPS jamming bubble. Suddenly, the precision-guided world the U.S. Navy operates in became fuzzy and unreliable. For the first time, the American screens flickered, coordinates drifted, target confidence dropped. Simultaneously, a new threat emerged on radar, closing at high speed. It wasn't one contact, but dozens. A swarm of cheap commercial-grade drones, each likely carrying a small explosive charge, had launched from nearby islands. This was classic swarm tactics with a brilliant twist. The drones weren't the real threat, they were the distraction. Their purpose was to force Gravely to focus its formidable defenses, its CIWS, its ESSM batteries, on cheap incoming targets. They were the Matador's cape, designed to draw the bull's attention, while the real killer, the Borisoglepsk system, prepared to strike. For 90 seconds, Venezuela believed they had done the impossible. A countdown clock appeared on Gravely's main screen, 90 seconds. That's how long they had until the drone swarm was on top of them and their GPS-guided weapons were flying blind. The Venezuelans had laid a masterful trap. Jamming combined with a drone swarm. It was textbook anti-access area denial, designed to make a modern warship's advanced technology useless. But they made one fundamental error. They assumed the fight was limited to what they could see on the horizon. The American solution came from a place the Venezuelans couldn't see and couldn't touch. Gravely executed what on Venezuelan radar looked like a retreat. This was the bait. As Guaicaipuro and its drone swarm pushed forward, emboldened, they moved further from the protective umbrella of their coastal jamming. Classic rope-a-dope. Then, the hammer fell. The order wasn't given to fire an anti-drone weapon. It was an order to fire the SM-2, the Standard Missile 2. This is the Aegis system's long-range sword. While the ESSM is a fencer's foil for close-in defense, the SM-2 is a 9-foot claymore designed for over-the-horizon warfare. How does it work when GPS is jammed? It doesn't need GPS. The SM-2 launches using inertial guidance, a sophisticated internal gyroscope and accelerometer system that knows where it is in space without external signals. It flies most of its 90 nautical mile range on this dead reckoning, receiving only periodic course corrections from Gravely's powerful SPY-1 radar. Only in its final moments does its own radar seeker activate to paint the target. Its technology designed specifically to defeat the kind of electronic warfare the Venezuelans were using. A voice cut through the combat information center. False retreat complete. Come about. Engage targets. The game had changed again. This was no longer a coastal knife fight. It had become a deep-water execution. This wasn't an attack. It was a symphony conducted by the Aegis combat system. The same missiles, designed for exactly this moment, launched from over the horizon. On the main screen in Gravely's Combat Information Center, their icons streaked across the tactical map, their flight paths calculated not just for speed, but for timing. This is the art of time-on-target strikes, where multiple weapons fired at different moments from different locations are choreographed to arrive at the exact same second. It's the naval equivalent of checkmate delivered from 3 sides of the board simultaneously. As the missiles began their terminal dive, a final countdown appeared. 10, 9, 8. This was the moment where physics, data, and decades of training converged into a single inevitable outcome. The first SM-2 wasn't aimed at Guaicaipuro's waterline. That would be too crude. Its target was a 3-foot square section of superstructure housing the ship's main fire control radar. The missile's proximity fuse detonated its high-explosive fragmentation warhead at the perfect moment, just meters above the target. It wasn't an explosion designed to sink the ship, but to lobotomize it. Thousands of pre-formed tungsten fragments shredded delicate radar arrays and communication antennas, instantly blinding the Venezuelan vessel and severing its connection to shore command. This is the doctrine of effects-based targeting. The goal isn't annihilation, it's neutralization. By destroying the ship's ability to fight, the US Navy could de-escalate while still achieving its military objective. However, battle damage assessment from the P-8's high-resolution camera showed a secondary system still active. The order was given for a second strike. This one was different, aimed at the engine room, no longer a warning. The second missile hit with the force of a freight train. Its kinetic energy alone tore through the thin hull before the warhead detonated inside the engine compartment. Guaicaipuro was ripped apart from the inside out, but even in its death throes, the Venezuelan trap had one last sting. The surviving drones from the initial swarm, their controllers now gone, continued dumbly on their last known flight path, a mindless, final charge. This is what the Phalanx close-in weapon system was born for, the ship's last line of defense, a completely autonomous guardian. Its nickname is R2D2, with a Gatling gun, for good reason. Its integrated search and track radar detected the incoming drones, classified them as imminent threats, and calculated firing solutions without a single human command. The distinctive, terrifying buzz of its 20mm Vulcan cannon ripped through the air as it spat out 4,500 tungsten rounds per minute, creating a literal wall of metal that vaporized the drones one by one. The fight was over. 6:45 a.m. The sun rose over calm Caribbean water. The sinking of Guaicaipuro was a tactical victory, but the real win was measured in spreadsheets and intelligence reports back in Washington. First, the logistics chain. By neutralizing a key patrol vessel, the U.S. Navy didn't just win a battle, they blew a hole in the narco-state's primary revenue stream. Cocaine flow, for a time, choked off. Second, the psychological impact. The ease and precision of the American response sent shockwaves through Venezuelan military command. Their best coastal defense trap, their home field advantage, dismantled with contemptuous ease. Morale plummeted. The cost analysis was equally brutal. Venezuela lost one $200 million patrol boat, 3 coastal radar installations, 73 personnel. The United States expended 4 SM-2 missiles at roughly $2 million each, 3 ESSM interceptors at $1.2 million total, approximately 4,500 rounds of 20mm ammunition worth $18,000. Total American cost, $9.2 million. Return on investment, eliminating a strategic threat while sending an unmistakable message across the entire Caribbean basin. Within 48 hours, President Trump issued a direct ultimatum to Caracas: stand down all aggressive naval patrols or face systematic destruction of Venezuela's entire coastal defense network. The message was clear. The poker game was over. The Venezuelans had tried to bluff with a pair of twos. The Americans had just shown them a royal flush, printed on cards they own, in a casino they built. So, what was the ultimate lesson learned? In the dark waters of the Caribbean, Venezuela made the classic mistake of confusing tactical aggression with strategic strength. They brought a knife to a drone fight, thinking geography would save them. The painful truth they received was this: modern naval warfare isn't about who shoots first. It's about who sees first, who processes information faster, and who can deliver overwhelming surgical violence from ranges the enemy can't even comprehend. Never start a fight with an opponent who not only printed the cards, but also owns the casino, the security cameras, and the satellite watching you from space. This scenario is a dramatized analysis based on publicly known capabilities and doctrines, not an official account. If you want to understand how modern wars are really fought before they ever reach the headlines, subscribe, because the next conflict won't start with an explosion, it will start with data. Your support helps us bring more untold stories of modern military operations to light.